Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Marcus from InfoSec Governance, and this channel is all about how to secure your business and help your business safeguard against various cyber threats. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to check the security of your WordPress installation and make sure it's nice and safe and secure. WordPress these days, running the latest version of WordPress, is fairly well configured and secured. However, you still need to ensure that you're still keeping half an eye on the installation of your site. You want to make sure that your plugins, your themes and everything else are kept up to date, that they're still running, that you've got no error messages on your portal and things like that. Otherwise, you don't even want to think about that moving forward. So this video is just going to be talking about a brief overview of what you should be installing, what you should be configuring on your WordPress installation, and then after that, how do you actually go and check to make sure your website is nice and secure. And without further ado, let's get on and do it. Now, the latest versions of WordPress have a good way of actually trying to keep your plugins up to date. They'll automatically try and apply the updates to your plugins and actually push them through and go from there. Now, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes you'll get errors, so you just need to go in, investigate within your portal, and have a look, see why it's not working. Sometimes it just needs a manual refresh. Same with themes. Some themes that you can get auto downloaders and update the themes as well. So one of the things we should be doing is, if you're no longer running plugins or themes that you no longer use, you should actually look at disabling those, and then once you no longer need them, just delete them. This will help reduce the foothold of any potential threats or security vulnerabilities on them, so they're not actually on your site. And it'll also reduce the amount of resources that are running on the server. So if you're running on a hosted server or your own server, removing all these things will actually just reduce it a little bit more, make it run a little bit quicker potentially, and go from there. Now, before we get on to how to actually check the security of your WordPress installation in your website, let's quickly talk about how you actually go about securing your website. Some of the quick wins in protecting your WordPress site is to change the default admin portal location. Now, by default, WordPress comes with a login portal that you go into to log into your website. This is always appended with a /wp-admin URL, which is always appended to the domain of your account. So if you had like domain.com/wp-admin, hit enter, you'd then be prompted to log in. Now, as this is a default one, everyone knows where it's located. You've got automated bots running it. You've got potential malicious people looking at doing that. If you have your website in this location, then they can actually run a brute force attack over a period of days, hours, months, and just actually try and actually access your site. Now, you can actually change the location of this within WordPress, and if you do that, it just makes it a little bit more harder for any automated bots, malicious people or anything like that, just to get in and try and brute force your website. So if you changed it from like wp-admin to iamloggingin here.com/test or something like that, it doesn't have to be like that, it could be anything. Then it just makes it a little bit harder, because majority of people are just going to test and check for that default location. Next one is user accounts. As soon as you've set up your user accounts, you should be ensuring that you've got strong passwords set up against them. The last thing you want to do is have weak passwords that can easily get guessed or brute forced and compromised. Now, you should ensure that you've got two-factor authentication enabled if you can, and also, if possible, have account lockout enabled as well. So if someone tries to access your account and have guessed the password wrong too many times, then that account gets locked out for a period of time, and then that just reduces the chances of anyone trying to break into your website. Another method is by installing security plugins within WordPress. By installing security plugins within your website, it actually gives you a few more options, and also gives you some visibility of what's actually happening around your website. The security plugins can actually help safeguard against various attacks by disabling things or reconfiguring things to be a bit more secure, and they can also help you, just give you some visualization of who's trying to log into your website, who's trying to perform X amount of attacks, and things like that. It just makes it a lot easier to actually understand and configure the various things on your website. Some of the example security plugins you can get are WP Security and Firewall, WordFence, iTheme Security Pro, and many, many more. There's loads out there, so you just have to have a look. Obviously, some are free, some are paid for. The ones that you pay for give you support and everything else, so you might have to have a look at that. So now we know what the basics are and what we need to know on how to actually protect your website. How do you actually go about checking the security of your website? For this video, we're going to have a look at about 3 different areas which will help you identify the overall security of your website. Now, this may start to get slightly technical for some people, and I do apologize up front if it does. I'll try and keep it as easy as possible and easy to understand as possible. The first area we're going to look at is the HTTP response headers, and see whether or not you have any of the recommended headers set. Now, if you don't know what an HTTP response header is, it's pretty much some kind of information that gets sent from the web server to the web browser. Now the web server can send various bits of information to the web server. This is going to potentially get confusing, but what it can do is the website can actually send various bits of information. So for example, you could say the server is running this version of software. This server does not want this command to be run, or this support this type of functionality, and it'll tell the web browser, and the web browser hopefully looks at it and honors all that information. Now there are some specific best practice or recommended security HTTP response headers to set, and for that we can actually have a look at that, check it, and then actually configure it later on. Now the one site I recommend for actually checking your website for security headers is securityheaders.com. This is a website run by Scott Helm, who's a security researcher, and all you have to do is just go to securityheaders.com, go to the website, and then the address bar, just type in your website address, just like test.com or whatever your website is, put it in, hit enter, or click on the scan button, and this will actually quickly look at your website, interrogate it, come back and actually give you a rating of A+ down to, I think it's about E or something like that, and it'll start from green and then go all the way down the various colours depending upon how bad it is. Now what it'll do is it'll give you a summary of what HTTP headers you have in place on the server, and also what headers are missing. Obviously the ones that you've got in place are green, the ones that are missing will be red. Now if you've got any red ones, you can actually just click on the links that will be on the website, and it'll actually give you a bit more information and you can go and get it all sorted. Now you might say, right, fair enough, I've got a load of HTTP headers missing, how do I actually implement them? Now this can get a bit complicated, and I'm not going to delve into it here because it'll just open a massive can of worms, but there is a WordPress plugin that's called HTTP Headers, which I recommend and I've liked and used in the past, and you can actually download that, install it on your website even, if I can speak words out, and then you can just go in, configure all those HTTP response headers. Then once you think you've got it done, go back to securityheaders.com, run the scan, see how you're doing. Are you missing anything, or you haven't quite tweaked it right? Go back to your website, re-scan it, reconfigure it, then rescan it, and keep going like that until you're all done. Now I will tell you now, sometimes adding some of these security headers may break your website, so if you can, put it in a staging site or a test site first, and then just make sure it all works properly, and then push it to your production site or your live site once you're all happy that everything works and nothing's broken. The next stage to look at is to see how good your SSL certificates are. There's a site called SSL Labs which allows you to test your website and then actually interrogate the SSL certificates to see if there are any issues. Now this can get complicated again, but again it's based on a rating system. So you go to this website, SSLLabs.com, you type your website address in, you click search, the site will go off, it'll have a look at your website certificates, which is the HTTPS bit. It'll go through, scan it all, and it'll give you another rating of A to whatever. Again, A is better, worse, the other ones are worse. And you can go through, have a look, and it'll actually report back saying, what's good, what's missing, and things like that. Now, it might be a case of, if you're not technical, you might have to speak to your web host or your IT provider and say, you've identified this, how do I fix it, and go from there. And then lastly, we're going to talk about a tool I love, WP Scan. WP Scan can be run on a Mac or a Linux machine. You can download it from the website, wpscan.com, or you can actually get it from the GitHub page, if I can speak words out again, and I'll put a link to that below the video. And then once you do it, you can just go in, run it, and go from there. Now, WP Scan does actually require an API token to run for maximum compatibility and all the results back properly. So with that, you just go to the wpscan.com website, you create a free account, and then you can get a free API token. Now this token will last for X amount of requests per month, I think it is, and you just go through and scan it. So all you need to do is just hit WP Scan, put your URL in, it's like --URL, put your website address in, have a look to see if you need any enumeration or anything like that in, put your token in, and away you go. It's very easy to use. If you're in the terminal, you can just say WP Scan --help, that'll give you the help. You can have a look to see what it is and just run it from there. Now, if you think that's too complicated for you, or you don't really want to do that, WP Scan actually have a WordPress tool that you can actually download, install, and put on your WordPress website, and it'll just pretty much do exactly the same thing. Now, the plugin does require an API token, so you will have to go back to their website, create an account if you haven't already, and then get an API token, copy it, paste it, configure it in the plugin, and then it'll just run in the background and keep an eye on your website. Then if any plugins become unsupported, or there's any security vulnerabilities on your website found after the scan, it'll actually just email you and go from there. And that's pretty much it. I hope this has been informative for you. I hope you go and have a look at your WordPress site if you've got one. Run some scans. See how secure your website is or isn't. If it isn't, or if some plugins aren't updated, update them. Keep your website nice and secure, and go from there. And yep, I'll see you next time.